Welcome to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. If you're wondering where Soren Petro is, well, he is on vacation today, this week, actually. He's not going to be around at all. And just in case you're wondering, we're still going to be okay without him. I am Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network. I will be holding it down as the host here. We have Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star as usual, and we have a special guest, good friend of mine and co-worker from the NFL Network, Steve Wyche is here. Welcome aboard, Steve. Welcome to the show. For those who don't know, Steve is a St. Louis native. Played football at Missouri for a couple years. He's got plenty of knowledge, and he's also the chief national reporter for the NFL Network. So just so you know, that means he's not the Chiefs guy. He's just a lot of and so today we're going to have a lot of fun because we've got a lot to talk about, right? We've got the game on Sunday, big win for the Chiefs over the Colts. And we also have a Thanksgiving Day game between the Chiefs and the Cowboys. So we're going to review one game, preview the other, and we will talk about a lot of stuff today. So we're going to get into whether the Colts lost that game, the Chiefs won it. We're going to talk about Mahomes going under center and whether that's a preview what the Chiefs should be doing offensively moving forward. Rashee Rice has a big day. What does that mean for him being a difference maker? Chiefs defense steps up. Are they back? And on the other side of this, we'll talk about the Cowboys game, big play offense, how Chiefs deal with that. Improved defense. What does that mean for the Chiefs? We'll talk about keys to the games, playoff hopes, and predictions. We'll do all that coming up on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thanks for that, Curtis. And Steve, just so you know, before we get into this is how it usually plays here. I'm usually labeled the pessimist, the Chiefs hater. Soren is normally the optimistic, unleash the fury, Chiefs are going to win big every week guy. And Sam's a realist here. And so I want to see how you fit in here. I'm not going to peg you in, but just know that anything I say is going to be hated real fast. And anything Sam says is going to be seen as more the gospel.
I'll be the honest.
Yeah, that's what I usually say, and that gets me in trouble.
Realist, yeah,
that gets me in trouble. But Sam, we'll start with you. You were at the game on Sunday, and tale of two halves, really. Not a great first three quarter for the Chiefs, and they come back in the fourth quarter and take over and in overtime, take over and win the game. So, what did you think happened on Sunday? Did the Chiefs win this game, or did the Colts blow it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be more about the Chiefs, just purely because they haven't won this game all year. They're 0-5 when they're trailing in the second half. They're 0-5 in one-score games. And to me, that's why I thought this felt like the vintage Chiefs. And I know when most people think of that phrase, they think of shootouts and points and entertainment. But to me, like, baked the recipe for their championships, like actually baked into those three Super Bowls, is winning when it's ugly, winning when you're flawed at times during the game. This is the first time all year that the Chiefs have won a game when it was ugly for parts of the game, when they were flawed for parts of the game. They've only shown one path to victory all year, which is just blow the other team out of the water, start to finish. They finally responded to some in-game adversity when things weren't going well. And without that recipe, we're not talking about a team that's won 3 Super Bowls. But it's the first time here in Week 12 that we've seen this iteration of the group show that.
What do you think, Steve?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think Kansas City, some of the play calling was odd. There was that one sequence where they threw the ball on first and second down and had a 6-yard completion on third down, so they didn't burn any clock. And allowed Kansas City to kind of milk clock on this next possession. Kansas City can go 10 plays with any team, in the NFL. So I think that was a big issue. And like Sam said, it was almost like the Chiefs flipped the switch. Defensively, Spags was dialing up the smoke, and guys were getting home to pressure Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has not played well under pressure, and they were making him feel it there in the fourth quarter. Kansas City was moving the ball, doing things they had to do. 15 was fantastic in the fourth quarter. It's just, I'm sure Chiefs fans are like, what is the red zone deal? Like, what is going on? The red zone numbers were absolutely awful. They're kicking field goals all game. They should have won that game, in all honesty, by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
The way they controlled the flow of both sides in the second half. So that's something they have to figure out. But this is the NFL. They were playing a very good football team. The fact they made enough plays, which they haven't done. Sam nailed it. It's been feast or famine, so to speak. Not really famine, but feast and kind of hungry for the Chiefs this year. So for them to close it out the way they did, especially defensively, I think was really, really encouraging, more than impressive. I think if they can continue to do this, even if it's by the skin of their teeth, they've got a shot to get into the playoffs. I don't think they win the West, but they've got a shot to get in. And once they get in, there's no team in the AFC you're going to look at and be like, okay, that's a loss for the Chiefs, or the Chiefs can't beat them. They can beat anybody in the AFC.
I know Jeff's got some teams that he looks at and says that's a loss for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I do it quite a bit, actually. I usually right, too. I did it 2 weeks ago, and it was okay, right? And last week I was okay. The Colts I didn't get right, but I thought it was – usually I go more Chiefs with these kind of situations, these kind of questions. And I'm going Colts this time.
Yeah.
Because like Steve said, that play calling sequence late in the fourth quarter, just over 5 minutes to go was horrible. And – to me, you have to run clock there. You have to make the Chiefs start burning timeouts. And this game was more about the coaching advantage, because I've said this for years, that the biggest thing the Chiefs had going for them outside from Patrick Mahomes was that there were so many bad coaches in this conference, in this division. And you saw Shane Steichen was not up to the same level as Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid when it counted most. They got very conservative. They got away from their best player, Jonathan Taylor, when they were up big, and they didn't have a real answer for what happens if Jonathan Taylor is taken away and we have to rely on Daniel Jones just to make some safe throws to keep us moving here. And to me, that sequence I talked about was huge, because if you just burn 3 minutes there and you keep getting the ball back with a couple minutes to go in that game, it's a different outcome.
Yeah.
And to me, I think the Colts really blew it.
It was actually 2 sequences in the second half. So they actually, after the Chiefs made it 20-17, the Colts went incomplete pass, punt. Then the Chiefs get the ball. And if the Colts implement your guys' strategy, was wasting the time, all of our focus on this podcast might be on what the Chiefs did next, which is they went 3 and out, just like
Yep.
But then the Colts get the ball back and go incomplete pass. They threw 6 passes over the course of 2 drives, all incomplete. Jonathan Taylor not involved at all in the 2 most consequential drives of the game. And like, if this is a Colts podcast, I think we're spending half of this show talking about 6 plays, because it's mysterious why. And I understand the Chiefs are playing the run the entire game, but Jonathan Taylor has more yards after contact than all but 2 rushers have total. Like, Jonathan Taylor isn't only getting yards because he's got open running lanes. Like, he creates yards. And to me, the Colts offense is completely predicated on 3rd and short. And if you look at their big plays in the first half, it's 3rd and short. Well, when you pass on first and pass on second, it's constantly 3rd and long. That's the situation they found themselves in the fourth quarter. And then the Chiefs finally got him on 3rd and short in overtime.
Yeah, you get in those known passing situations. I mean, Spags is going to game you up. And, Daniel Jones has shown the past couple games. Again, when you get in his face, he's erratic. I mean, some of the Giants, Daniel Jones shows up. But I'm with you, Sam. The play calling was absolutely head-scratching, because if you can't run him, you can screen him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Screen him. They're down at pressure. If they're sending 5, or if they're giving these certain, simulated pressures, where not screen them. Same thing as a run. Andy Reid would have screened him. I mean, that's Andy Reid's favorite thing to do anyway. Find someone to receiver to screen them. Somehow easy completion, burn clock, make them burn timeouts, and really force their hand. It was, again, that's why I say it's both the Colts blowing it, but then the Chiefs capitalizing. I mean, and that's something you have to give them credit for. They just got to stop kicking field goals and start scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, I felt like the Chiefs didn't feel the pressure they could have felt in that game, given the lead that the Colts had. And I was surprised they didn't run Daniel Jones more. I know he hasn't run as much as in years past, but he's an athletic guy. He has run design runs with the Giants many times. And they ran a bootleg.
He did, Jeff, have that injury in practice, and I wondered how much that might have altered their game plan late in the week in that very specific way.
Yeah.
Because you've mentioned this more than any of us, that running quarterbacks has been an Achilles heel, even of the Chiefs' good defensive use over the past couple of years. And I was, like you, surprised, but there was that one bootleg where he had maybe 10 yards of space and just went out of bounds. I thought he's not right. He's not completely right here.
He's been putting the ball on the ground too. I mean, he hasn't lost all of his fumbles, but I think coming into the game over the previous 2 or 3 games, he had 6 fumbles.
Yeah.
So, maybe he's got all this going on. We'll see if he snaps out of it, because now the Colts have found themselves in a little bit of trouble in the AFC South with the Jags, and the Texans kind of surging.
Yeah, we're talking so much about the Colts offense. We want to talk about the Chiefs offense, because a lot to talk about there with the run game. Andy Reid taking a play out of 1985 Oklahoma here, all these design runs, called runs.
I know about that team.
Oh, boy. Rashee Rice's day. And we'll talk about Spagnuolo, too. And we'll do that after we come back from a break here. And we talk to our sponsor. We'll let our sponsors have their say with GAN Asphalt Concrete.
GAN Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let GAN educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. GAN Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find GAN online at GANAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. GAN Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot.
This episode of Red, Gold, and Bold is brought to you by Frontier Justice, where freedom is a lifestyle grounded in safety, responsibility, and respect. With locations in Lee Summit, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, and Jenks, Oklahoma, Frontier Justice offers firearms retail, a premier indoor shooting range, and training, all under one roof. Whether you're new to shooting or a seasoned pro, you'll find expert staff, top-tier gear, and a strong sense of community. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Frontier Justice stands for. Visit frontier-justice.com to learn more.
Italian Delight was the first restaurant to bring true New York-style pizza to Kansas City almost 50 years ago. They sell whole pies or pizza by the slice, or enjoy their classic strombolis, calzones, and sausage rolls. Sandwich lovers, check out their lineup of hot and cold subs, the combo, the meatball, or the Philly cheesesteak, just to name a few. And don't forget the pasta. Their famous lasagna and classic chicken Alfredo always hit the spot. And if you're hungry for lunch, check out their daily lunch specials, starting at under $10. Italian Delight can even cater your next work function or party. Dine in, carry out, or delivery, it's Italian Delight. Located just 3 minutes east of Kansas Speedway at 8145 State Ave in KCK. Check out the menu and order online at ItalianDelightKS.com. Kansas City's own Italian Delight.
All right, Sam. Last week we talked about the run game, which has been a hot topic around this town for the last few weeks. Everybody talking about the need to run more, being under center more. Andy Reid finally goes to this. I know, Sam, you weren't a huge proponent of this. You thought it was a little bit of overkill. But Andy Reid went all in with this, with 37 called runs, 30 runs for Kareem Hunt, who I don't even know if he's alive today or in the hospital somewhere. But it worked. And they controlled the football for 42 minutes and certainly controlled the game, helped their defense out. Is this the offensive formula that she should be using moving forward, Sam?
Yeah, I'm still not a huge proponent. I'll tell you why. So they ran the ball a lot more under center too, which I know is something that a lot of people have been clamoring for. They ran the ball 16 times under center. Their yards per carry on those 16 tries was 2.9 yards per carry. And I think that the counter argument to this could be, okay, well, it keeps defenses honest. The Colts still weren't playing the run the entire game. They blitzed on less than a fourth. Their dropbacks, they played 3-man rushes with the spy, sometimes a 4-man rush with the spy. Like, all of their stuff is still concentrated on the pass. And it goes back to what I've been saying, that I don't think the Chiefs have a way to make teams play the run. Running the ball more is not going to get teams to play the run. You've got to have better personnel than what they have. They're second to last in the NFL in explosive rushing yards. Teams aren't playing the run because they don't fear the consequences of the Chiefs running the ball. And 11 games has instructed them, don't fear the consequences of the Chiefs running the ball. And so I just don't know that the Chiefs have the personnel to change the way teams are going to play them. And if you want to take advantage of the light boxes that you see, they saw a ton of light boxes again. It run the ball, that's great. But I don't envision a scenario when it's going to take less than 20 carries to have your first 100-yard rusher of the season, rather than giving the ball to somebody 30 times.
Yeah, I mean, look, if it's setting up the play action, it works. You know, it's a change of pace. If it's not normal, okay, you caught the Colts. Okay, let's see if, this week against Dallas, if it works. You saw Atlanta go under center for the first time with Kirk Cousins, all season long when they've been in the pistol, and that's been a point of contention. It's just to me, it all depends on your opponent. With, some of the things you notice about their defensive key reads and things like that. But if it's set to the play action, fine and dandy. Now other teams have to think about, okay, what are the Chiefs going to do when they go under center? If they're only getting 3 yards in a cloud of dust, that's okay. But if you only need 2, that's fine. But if you need 5, then it's going to take a second play to get the remaining yardage. So I think the Chiefs will revert a lot back to more of the, shotgun type stuff that they like to do. But knowing that they can do this if they have to do this, I think, is a nice comfort.
Yeah, it feels like, and I said this in the radio show this morning, that it feels like making your kids eat their vegetables instead of having the fun stuff on the plate, like eat the broccoli and the peas. Like they were doing this almost in a way that it seemed as if they don't want to do this, but they have to do it because they're trying something different. But I agree with you, Steve. I don't know if they're going to be committed to this long term. It felt more like they had to do it in a game like this because they had to find a way to control Jonathan Taylor. And I think the big upshot of doing it in this game was they were able to contain Taylor and keep their defense fresh and keep the Colts defense from having the same pressure energy at the end of the game to allow Mahomes to complete those longer developing throws. Those weren't like quick throws he was making.
No.
Rashee Rice and Xavier, those were like longer developing plays. And one more second, he might be getting sacked. And so I think that's where it mattered and came into play. But I don't know if you can – I think that the Colts going 3 and out the way they did helped them do a lot of this running. I think if it's a different game, like a Dallas where you're more explosive and you're more back and forth, I don't know if you can keep doing it the way they did it.
Here's something else. We saw the Chiefs do this a couple of years ago, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Sam.
No, go.
When I don't know if they necessarily went under center, but they started running the ball more to stop the penalties on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Right? This was something where they could get into a cadence, they can get into a rhythm, even if they're doing some of the dummy calls and things like this, the hut, and then stuff like this. But when you're under center, sometimes it keeps everything a little bit more sequential. Whether you're at home, on the road, the noise factor is different if you're 5 yards behind the center. So that could have factored into it as well, because you look at the penalty disparity. The Colts had 11. I think the Chiefs had 5 or 6. So maybe that went into the thinking of it somewhat as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And to your point about the play action, I mean, the Chiefs did run more play action than they have all year. Now, they weren't great at it, but they also they don't do a lot of play action, and it's not it's not in their comfort zone to do it. And so I do wonder if you do continue this run, can you be a more effective play action team? Because we've talked about play action a ton. A lot of these good offenses that the Chiefs have faced this year, the one thing they're really good at is play action. And if you're going to invoke the running game, you've got to be better with being able to have the deception element up to it as well.
Yeah, and play action, too, is going to help. Again, you saw it with Rashee Rice where they allow them to do more things down the field. And Rashee Rice is where I want to go to right now, because I was really hard on him last week against Denver. Did not make a lot of plays, did not have a ton of impact. And I'm sitting here thinking, this guy, what is he really? And he showed up big when they had to. 111 yards in the second half, 141 for the game, big 2-point conversion. And I didn't think he was that much of a difference maker. I think differently now, and I'll give you my views. But I'm curious, Sam, did he change anything about the way you felt, or is this what you were expecting from him all along?
Yeah, I mean, he beat man to man. I mean, the last 2 weeks. I mean, the last 2 weeks, the Chiefs couldn't beat man to man against the Bills and the Broncos. And I had mentioned the stat about how good the Chiefs were against zone over that previous month when they were the hottest offense in the NFL for a month. Well, teams looked at that and said, we're not playing zone against those guys. Like, we're going to try and man them up. And the guy who Jeff, you were right about the way Rashee Rice played in Denver. I mean, they took him out of the game with man-to-man without their lockdown cornerback. And so it's why that play that really stood out to me was when their backs were against the goal line at the 2 or 3 yard line, and Patrick Mahomes threw into a tight window, and then Rashee Rice got about 25 yards after the catch. And that stood out to me for two reasons. One, that Rashee Rice won, but two, I thought Patrick Mahomes looked uncomfortable in pockets where he could have looked more comfortable. He was trigger shy at times. He looked to escape pockets where he didn't need to escape. And in that one, he's in his own end zone, and that's the time where he decides, I'm going to lock down in the pocket and just throw a ball to a tight window. And that was the result of it. And to me, that was the play that broke the dam in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, look, Rice is a good player. I like when they move him around a little bit. I didn't know the analytical, man versus zone numbers and things like that, but I'm surprised Andy doesn't have, a bunch of man beaters, in his route tree. Maybe he does, and they just haven't been able to execute him because of the pressure on Mahomes. I mean, those go hand in hand, and when they play Dallas, they're going to see a good mixture of this stuff because those two safeties are healthy for Dallas, and that allows them to do a lot more defensively than they were able to do early in the season. So, I think Rashee Rice, again, good player. I like him in the slot, especially doing some of the seam stuff. But to me, he's the one guy, a bigger body dude who can break a tackle and make a play. And that's what you have to do, especially in the NFL now with some of these DBs. You're going up against Denver. I mean, those dudes bring mad thump. I mean, so you got to have somebody like that who can break a tackle and take a 6-yard completion to a 12 or 15-yard completion.
So how did it change your mind, Jeff?
Well, I think because he made the plays. I didn't think he could play at that level in a meaningful game based on what I'd seen from him. He hadn't done it. I mean, obviously he got hurt last year early, and so he wasn't playing in these kind of games. And then, the first year he was here, it was more, quick hitch, screen, whatever. And so I still don't think he's a number one receiver. But the conversation we have around him, Steve, is just that is Andy's offense so reliant on guys he handpicks to be schemed up, or is he getting guys who really are super talented, A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type guys? And so Rashee Rice has fallen into this conversation of like, what is he really? And so for me, it was huge for him to do what he did in those moments. And I feel a lot more confident about him doing it moving forward, especially because he got hurt and he played through that hamstring injury, whatever was going on with him. But yeah, it's I just didn't think he had it in him based on what I'd seen, because I thought when Denver didn't have Surtain out there, he was going to go run wild, and he disappeared. And so maybe he's going to be back and forth, up and down, but he showed big. I respect him for that.
I thought it was telling that the Colts decided to take away the 36-year-old tight end, rather than the wide receiver in his mid-20s, because we saw the Bills put so much attention on Rashee Rice that, it opened up some things for some other guys. They went to Kelsey because of it. And I thought that was going to be defensive game plans for the rest of the season, is thinking that Andy Reid wants to funnel this thing through Rashee Rice and have Travis Kelsey be more of the 1B. But the Colts treated Travis Kelsey like he was in his prime based on what he had done against Denver. And it'll be interesting to see moving forward whether or not teams thought that was the more effective strategy. And the Chiefs had 500 yards of offense. They also ran 91 plays.
91 plays. Well, I saw that number. I was like, what?
It's the highest number of any team in the league in any game this year.
91 plays.
91
That's what I'm saying.
plays.
They should have won by 14 points. 91 plays. The Colts have 11 penalties. You get into the red zone 6 times. And you're kicking field goals.
First downs at the end of regulation were 29-10.
That's insane.
In a tie game.
That's insane. And you're not turning the ball over.
Yep. Yeah. No, it was a wild game in that way. And so, I look, I think that you saw it. You were there at the end of the game. I imagine, and I think Stephen St. John said this in the locker room afterwards, they looked very worn out. Like they had given all they could to win this game because they knew what they were up against. And it was a huge win for them. But they have more. Every game's going to be a must-win moving forward. Every week. But to me, the defense stepping up was just as big as what we're talking about with the run and Rashee Rice, because they had not been doing that. Bo Nix was the worst quarterback walking until he saw the Chiefs. Josh Allen and James Cook had their way with this defense. To go against the highest scoring offense in the league, get those 4 3-and-outs, 4 straight 3-and-outs, hold this team to 255 yards, 20 points, Jonathan Taylor contained. Huge statement for Steve Spagnuolo. And so is this defense back, Sam?
Yeah, I think that the Colts present a different sort of challenge than, like, say, even the Cowboys will this week. They're different stylistically. But I think you could argue that point where the Chiefs Kareem Hunt fumbles the ball and the Colts take over inside their own 10, I think you can make the argument that's the low point of a Patrick Mahomes regular season career, because they're staring at 5-5, down 11, fourth quarter, potentially going to be 5-6. And I'm not sure the Chiefs win if they even give up a first down in that moment. Yeah. And giving up a 3-and-out is I thought it was the high point of the season. And the fact that you mentioned it, Jeff, I mean, we've talked a lot about the offense, but the defense is what flipped the momentum of that game and potentially flipped the momentum of the season. And we can talk about, we already did, the fact that they should have invoked Jonathan Taylor more. They also did a really good job against Jonathan Taylor for the first 3 quarters in that game. And the primary way that they've really improved as a defensive unit, even for the first half of the season, is they're not giving up the explosive rushes anymore. I mean, they've given up 20 explosive rushes in their first 6 games. They've given up 6 in their last 5, even though they just faced Jonathan Taylor. And you look at, like, the biggest run he had, the Chiefs were trying to take away the quarterback sneak, and the Colts just get him on it because they're not actually sneaking the ball. So, I mean, I definitely agree with the sentiment that the Colts could have altered their plays, but the Chiefs deserve a lot of credit for forcing them to try something different as well.
Well, Chris Jones showed up. I mean, Chris Jones really played well. And look, when you see numbers like that, like you were just breaking down, Sam, what that tells you is they're playing discipline, right? Everyone's playing their role. No one's stat chasing. No one's kind of playing with bad eye discipline, right? Everyone's doing their certain pass rush lanes. If they're stunting, the guy's picking off an offensive lineman instead of trying to make the play himself. So to have those types of tight run defenses like they showed, I mean, Chris Jones was fantastic the way he played in the game, the way he affected that game. And you just have not seen that consistently this season out of him. Teams are loading up on him, but teams have always loaded up on him. So I think some of the stuff Spags was dialing up, but then some of the effort for the players. I mean, that was an effort type of thing, not just scheme. Those guys were playing hard in that game to make those plays work. And I think that you got to take your hat off that. You love seeing it. That's why you love watching, like, the Houston Texans defense. Those guys do not take a play off. They grind like that. And you saw that from the Chiefs, in that entire second half.
One quick note on sorry, Jeff, to cut in, but just to double down the Chris Jones thing. So I asked Spags today about him, and he said, you know what, I told him 2 weeks ago that his practices were at a different level. And he said, I think he's been better over these last 2 weeks. Of course, Chris Jones came into the media room later, and I said, hey, Spags said this. And he's like, well, I think I've been pretty consistent.
Of course.
But the coaches noticed this something. And the last 2 weeks, Chris Jones has been a different player in Denver, and then, like Steve said, against the Colts. And this is how their defense has to operate. Like, Chris Jones doesn't play like the guy who's making 3 times as much as anyone else on defense. The defense is no longer a top 5 or even top 10 defense.
Yeah, and they feel it. It's no different than an NBA team when they're leading scorers or
good point.
Whatever, not getting it done or whatever, injured. And when they start getting it going, everybody's starting to feel good. Give me the ball. Let me make things happen. And so I've said this for years. This team, when their stars are playing well, they win a lot of games. And so you're seeing Travis Kelce have that impact, as you said, Sam, on the offense. Now you're seeing Chris Jones getting a little more psyched up, a little more gassed up to go out and get things done. I'm sure it has a huge impact on the way all these guys play. But I also feel like Spagnuolo knew, look, if we get Daniel Jones into a spot here, it's going to be good for us. Mm-hmm. And so you can't feel that same way when it's Josh Allen, because you got other things to worry about if you take away whatever, James Cook or this or that or whatever. And I think Sean Payton, as much as we harp on Bo Nix, has good plans for Bo Nix. They don't always work out, but he knows how he wants to use it. I was stunned, not just with the lack of running, but the inability of the Colts to go down the field. Like I said, I thought Alec Pierce would have a bigger day in this game with some of the attention the run game would get. Michael Pittman made a couple plays, but that was it. And so, look, their corners are playing great. Jalen Watson, I've been hard on him. He's played super high.
Playing like a guy in a contract here.
Yeah. And so that makes a big difference. Brian Cook has played well, and you're seeing it. But again, the guy up front, 95, when he's getting it done, when he's really motivated and understands what's at stake, it's a different unit. And so they have to be excited about that, because I thought, man, these guys, the last couple games before this one, they're getting played out. And if Jones ain't getting it done, then nothing's happening.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that they really haven't been able to marry Karlaftis and Jones yet this year.
No,
because Karlaftis was really good over about a month-long stretch from week 4 to 8 or so, and the last couple of weeks, as Chris Jones has heated up, we haven't seen it from Karlaftis. So I still feel like if you look at the weakness of the Chiefs defense, you still look at their pass rush. They're not pressuring the quarterback frequently enough. And Chris Jones had 1 tackle in that game, was his actual. And like for years, we've been saying, don't look at the Chris Jones stats. He gets double teams. He's still forcing quick throws. When you get the pressure up the middle, quarterback conceding, get rid of it. Just have a check down, a throwaway. That's not the reason he hasn't put up stats this year. That is the reason he didn't put up stats against the Colts. I mean, he could have forced a safety on the play, backed up against the goal line. It's just everything on the back end just becomes so much easier when the guy is getting quick pressures up the middle, and we just hadn't seen it until these last couple of weeks.
Well, he better dial it up Thursday.
Yeah.
That guy sit back there a little bit of time. They're going to get torn apart.
Yeah. There's a different beast coming with the Cowboys on a short week. Going to be exciting game. We're going to talk about that next, because there's a lot to talk about with that one, with the way they played offensively, George Pickens, the defense coming around. And so we'll get back and we'll get on that subject when we come back, and after we hear from Northland Injury Law, another great sponsor.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Okay, Steve, you brought it up with the Cowboys offense and what they can do, and they're impressive. They've been impressive all year. They're one of the highest scoring. I think they're 4th in the league in scoring. Dak Prescott quietly has been playing better than Mahomes has. He's got better QBR, better passer rating, more touchdown passes, better completion percentage. But then you look at the things around him, with the way George Pickens is playing. Javonte Williams is 5th in the league in rushing. Jake Ferguson is like tied for the most touchdown catches for a tight end. And CeeDee Lamb, by the way, isn't even playing that great. And so, you mentioned it, Steve, but I want to get back to Sam with this one. I mean, that defense was great for the Chiefs, but Daniel Jones ain't back there this time. And it's not Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman. It's different guys. And so what kind of concern should they have about dealing with this offense, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys have an easy button. Like, the Chiefs operate their offense without the easy button. Everything, requires 10 plays to get downfield. And the Cowboys, it's not just that the receivers are great at getting open. It's that they can make plays when they're not open. I mein, George Pickens has 18 contested catches this year. To put that in perspective, the Chiefs have 14 as a team. Pickens has 18. And we saw in the Super Bowl, as good as the Chiefs corners are, they're not huge. They're not lengthy. Right. I mean, Trent McDuffie's terrific, but he's not that tall. And Pickens can high point the ball, and he can get up higher than Trent McDuffie can. So to me, that's the biggest concern is if things aren't going well for the Cowboys, they still have an option. They can still try and make something happen from nothing in a way that we've talked about that the Chiefs can't. And there's no real great way to game plan for that because you can't double them both. Yep. That's why you get two of these guys. You can't double them both.
You got to pressure Dak. I mean, and look, Philadelphia was on a 2-game heater in terms of getting to the quarterback, and they that offensive line locked them down when we saw them last. So Spags is going to have to be real creative in getting pressure. And I think this is where you come up with some good blitzes, right? Because the running backs aren't necessarily great receivers. Now the tight ends are, and they do a great job of masking, keeping the tight end for protection, let them leak out as an outlet. But, Sam, one thing you're talking about, the contested catches, Dak is putting the ball in spots where you look at some of those catches Pickens had against the Eagles. They had guys draped all over him, but Dak is putting it just in a spot where Pickens can get it, even if it's on the sideline. Like, Dak's accuracy right now is insane. And one thing that I love Brian Schottenheimer is doing with Dak, and Jeff, this is a former DB, and that is putting defenders in conflict in terms of bouncing Dak out on the edge. And instead of Dak just kind of floating and throwing it, he is approaching the line of scrimmage, right, where all of a sudden the defender has to decide if he's got to come up and hit Dak or if he's going to go back and plaster the receiver. And you saw Philadelphia on the touchdown run by Dak, they're plastering the receiver. So he's like, I'm going to go ahead and coast it in. So they're doing a great job of evening the math on offense. And it worked in part against Philadelphia because they could run the ball, but Philadelphia was not getting the pressure on Dak either. And this is where Chris Jones is going to have to be fantastic against Spags. Is going to have to be creative. And their safeties are going to have to really come into play, right? On the deep routes, you see Pickens, some sidelines, but both these receivers, Lamb and Pickens, are incredible on these crossers. And when they get free on these crossers, it's usually off of a mesh or a rub, and they're one-on-one up with usually the defender trailing them. So that's where it's going to be real difficult. They're going to have to have a ton of awareness in the situations where they like to run those mesh and rubs on those crossers because those guys can run after the catch.
Yeah, and I think, we talk about their talent so much, but Brian Schottenheimer deserves a ton of credit for what he does. And we never talk about him as being one of these offensive Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, whoever you want to throw out there, Ben Johnson type guys. But the way he's run this offense, there's no way you would have sat here at August and said Javonte Williams is going to be a real viable, Pro Bowl player in this offense. I don't think Dak has ever had an outside receiver like George Pickens, and the way they utilize him, the confidence that Dak is playing with now, I don't think I've ever seen him play this confidently. And you're right, it's the decision making, it's the belief in what they can do, and the execution of it. Like, that is, again, it felt as if they knew, okay, Daniel Jones ain't beating us if we take away this guy. You can't take that approach with this. You got to be on point with everything you do, and might be their biggest challenge of the year offensively.
Yeah, I mean, because it speaks to the weakness that Steve pointed out, that like the thing you have to do against him is pressure him. The Chiefs don't pressure well, and the Cowboys don't give up pressures. I mean, Dak is like the 6th, I think, least pressured quarterback in the league this year. And so with all of that formula together, you look at and say, I agree with Steve on the key to the defensive part of it. That like that's not been the Chiefs' strength, and it's why like the Chris Jones that you've seen is the one that needs to show up. And there's one other piece of this I think is interesting, which is in order to create more pressure, you have to be creative. Well, you've got a short week to implement some stuff. One practice one practice today, and so I don't know how creative you can be on these short turnarounds. And other than you're preparing ahead, but then once you get to 5-5, God, all your focus needs to go in to the Colts. How many assistant coaches can you have looking ahead at that point?
Well, I mean, look, one thing with these short week games, though, is you kind of go back to your bread and butter. You focus on what you do. Yeah, what they like to do in certain situations on, second and short on the plus side of the 50 and things like this. But you go back to what you do. And if it works, it works. This is in-game adjustment city. And so that's the real big part of it. I mean, I'm sure they're studying film and this and that, but you just have to hope the players' bodies hold up well enough to be able to execute on these short weeks. And here, I'll say this, though. One thing about Dallas, you talk about a team that can lose focus.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Are you going to get this as well as they played for 2 straight games? are they the type of team you think is going to go on a 4 or 5 game win streak? They've got the talent and the potential to do so, but man, they can veer over here real quick. So we'll see if Kansas City can get them to look left when they need to be looking right.
One thing I'm curious about, and you guys can both speak to this, is just how much the Marshawn Kneeland death is playing into this, because the dynamic there feels as if emotionally they've got something different going on. And even after that game against Philadelphia, I don't want to say that was all about him. It wasn't. But if you saw Schottenheimer in the locker room talking to that team is really buying into what he's selling right now in a way that wasn't happening, probably even a couple weeks ago. And so it does feel like he's got a hold of this team, and they understand that, okay, it's a long shot to make the playoffs where they're at right now, but only way they get a chance to get better is by winning these games. How much different is this team emotionally right now, do you think the Cowboys are? Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think, none of us, I don't think we're praising the Brian Schottenheimer hire at the time, but sometimes it seems like something happens and you find out you do have the right man for the job for maybe a different reason than even you hired him. And I agree with you, Jeff, that, I don't think you think a situation like that happens and you think that the team is suddenly going to be better on the field after something like that happens. I think something like that happens, we would totally excuse that the opposite response happens, because, how meaningless does football seem after something like that happens? But you're right. They played incredibly inspired over the past couple of weeks. And I don't know if that's a causation, the correlation equals causation or not, but there's no doubt that they're playing better over the past couple of weeks.
Well, it definitely was a touch point. Look, most people 24 years old don't have a peer die, especially in the way that he died. And how are you going to handle it is tough. And this is where, I think Solomon Thomas losing a sibling to suicide and Dak Prescott losing a sibling to suicide really were able to dig in. And Shotty, he just kind of was able to put his arms around everything that those guys were trying to do. Look, when Brian Schottenheimer got hired, I spoke to some people who were on that staff and used to be on that staff. We said, perfect fit for the dynamic of that organization. He's a good coach. Dak respects him. He's the type of guy who's going to let Jerry do his thing, his radio shows, and not get his panties in a bunch about it, and just coach the football team. And so I think the emotional thing with Marshawn Kneeland, but also the trade for Quinnen Williams, right? You got Quinnen Williams coming in, and we tend to look at that as an individual piece, but it's a pairing with him and Kenny Clark. They are functioning well together. I talked about getting their safeties back. Donovan Wilson comes back as well as Malik Hooker. Remember, 2 or 3 years ago, they were probably the best safety tandem in the NFL. You've seen that. And that's allowed Deron Bland on the corner to do some things. Oh, and then Overshown comes back at middle linebacker from that knee injury. We know how he can go sideline to sideline with anybody in the NFL. So their pieces are coming back. They've got this emotional thing that they're fighting through and embracing in terms of coming together as a unit. And now they've got, again, their talent coming back that knows how to play what Eberflus is trying to do. They got some things working their way, that's kind of pulling them magnetically to some positive sides on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and I don't know if Jerry Jones was being crazy like a fox when he started making these moves with a defense that was last in the NFL and a team that seemed to be going nowhere.
Nowhere on that,
yeah. But certainly
Jerry the soothsayer.
Yeah, but certainly it's helped them feel better about themselves and probably helps them with the credibility of the coach. And that defense has played well. Look, they gave up 30 points, at least 30 points in 7 of their first 8 games and 40 points 3 times. The last 2 games, it's been 37 points total. And they contained Saquon Barkley, held him to 22 yards. And that run defense is better. Their personnel is better. And Sam, are the Chiefs facing a different beast now? Because a month ago, I would have said this is a blowout for the Chiefs. Now it's a whole different game.
Yeah, I think, in the betting market, it's their hardest game left. And it's because of the additions that Steve mentioned. Their 2 best run defensive performance have been the last 2 weeks. 2 of their highest 5 pressure rates have been the last 2 weeks. I think people could look at it and say they only had 1 sack against the Eagles. Their pressure rate was 38%. They totally affected Jalen Hurts in that game. You could also say, well, the Eagles' offensive line was banged up in that game. Trey Smith is probably not going to be playing on Thursday against Dallas. And if there's a player that you want to have against this team with the defensive tackles that Steve just mentioned with Clark and Williams, I wouldn't want to be missing an interior lineman in this game. And we saw what the Eagles did to Mike Caliendo in the Super Bowl, and he's only played spot duty since, but I think that he's probably a better player than that performance. I think he would have said that day was one of his worst performances. He's not Trey Smith. He's not a Pro Bowl caliber player. And I look at that's the matchup I look at is Quinnen Williams, but I think it's the matchup the Cowboys look at it as well and say, our guy is lining up against 66 for most of this game. And what are the Chiefs going to do about that matchup?
You know what they're not going to do? Go under center.
Move that quarterback back. See that big boy coming. Yeah, it's a fascinating game now. And the Chiefs have one road win against the Giants back in whatever the week 3, whatever it was, and it was not a great road win. This is a huge game for them in terms
for both
of
teams.
For both teams, yeah. But we know what happens to the Cowboys if they lose. Their chances of getting in with where the NFC is right now, it's a lot of teams 8 wins, 8-3, 8-7-4. The Chiefs, I think the stats I saw, analytics said they dropped to 46% as far as making the playoffs. But I'm curious, Sam, a loss in this game, is it worse than that for them in terms of keeping pace with everybody else in the AFC?
It's weird timing to have what I said earlier, which is I think it's statistically the hardest game they have left because their most difficult opponents remaining are at home, and they've played considerably better at home. I still think that the Chiefs have some margin for error. I went back and looked, and since 2015, at least one 5-5 team has made the playoffs every single year since 2015, and it's averaged 2. And I think you could easily look at the Chiefs and say, that's a better than average 5-5 team. Why shouldn't they be the one? And what's interesting about all those teams that made it, only one of them ran the table the rest of the way. The rest of them all lost. 19 of the 20 lost at least one other game. So I still think the Chiefs have a margin for error when you look at it. But this is when the timing element comes into play. Like when you have to run the table, if you lose this game, I think that starts to affect the psyche in a certain way in the middle of the next game. For example, let's say you're in a have to run the table situation, you're down in the fourth quarter, all the pressure in the world in that game goes on to you. So that's why I actually would classify it, probably as a coin flip, maybe slightly less if you lose this game. And let's face it, I mean, a lot of my predictions were based on the Jaguars losing games that they didn't lose over the last 2.
They keep winning. What do you think, Steve? Is playoffs in real jeopardy with a loss against Dallas?
If I'll put it to you this way, if they lose this game, they got to run the table. In terms of there's so many desperate teams out there. The Bills are in the same situation. Even though they've got 4 losses, they do not feel comfortable about their team. They're only 2 games behind the Patriots in the loss column, right? But they just know that because they don't have a receiving threat that anybody fears, that they've got to put everything on Josh Allen. So you've got the Bills feeling uncomfortable. You have the Texans and Jags feeling better about themselves. Okay, let's concede that Denver's going to win the West. The Chargers schedule is not the most difficult, right? So you could have 2 teams already in the West. Okay, are you going to bump Buffalo out of a wild card spot? Maybe, right? But they're still up by you on one game and the win and loss
tiebreaker, yeah.
So you just start looking at some of the numbers there. So, again, I think Kansas City's got a loss in them because none of these teams – that's what I say. If Kansas City gets in, there's not a team out there I think that they cannot beat, right? Even if they've got to go on the road. At the same time, they could be one and done. But it's one of these things where maybe there's only one team coming out of the North, which we probably think. Possibly 2 teams come out of the East. So I think they've got one loss in them, and that's their margin for error.
Yeah, it feels like obviously New England upsetting the apple cart in the AFC East is a big factor in this. And I go back to what I said at the start of the show as far as coaching. I mean, a lot of these teams are well coached that are ahead of them. And so it used to be that even in this situation, and they've never been this deep into it, but you can always rely on some of these teams that look good right now, falling apart or melting down the stretch.
Sure.
They just weren't real threats.
Yeah.
Like all these teams, your point, Steve, have urgency, and they know we don't want to be sitting there at 6 or 7 in the seeding, a couple weeks to go. We want to create some better opportunities for ourselves. So it's tough. This is the curse. I keep saying of 0-2. You can't get back into this until other teams start dropping.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean those other I still don't think the Jaguars are a great team. And,
They're not.
They're not.
and here they are.
Yeah.
With the tiebreaker against the Chiefs as well.
Yeah.
And like all that matters at this point are the wins. Like how they're playing is going to affect how I predict the rest of the season. But all that matters in this conversation is the standings themselves. And the Jaguar. What's interesting is those AFC South teams have a lot of games left against each other. The Jaguar, the Colts and Texans still haven't played each other at all.
And don't the Chiefs play the Texans coming up?
Yeah, yep. They play them.
See, that's a huge game. That's a huge game.
Yeah. And so, it's ironically, it could be the Colts end up falling back to earth and potentially creating the opportunity for the Chiefs. They're the only one the Chiefs have beaten so far. But, that's a bigger conversation for another day. Let's talk about keys to the game. We talked about some of them already, Sam, but what do you think are the most important things for the Chiefs to do in this game to win it?
You got to stop play action. I was looking at some next-gen stats numbers today just because it seems like the Chiefs are really bad against play action, and they're even worse than I anticipated. So they've allowed the second worst EPA per dropback on play action. They've allowed an 80% completion percentage on play action this year.
Wow.
They have one sack against play action all year. Obviously, that's dead last in the league. Well, the reason it's most relevant is Dak Prescott has thrown more play action than he ever has in his life this year. He's got the 7th highest rate in the league, and the Cowboys are really, really good when they do it. They've got the 3rd best EPA in the league. So to me, that's a linebacker's game to where the linebackers have to be prepared for run or pass. And we haven't talked a ton about Nick Bolton this year in a year in which he's the first year of a mega contract. So he's playing at home. This is 45 minutes from his hometown of Edgewood, Texas. And to me, it'd be a really good time for Nick Bolton to have a big day.
Yeah, we're not too far from Patrick Mahomes or Rashee Rice's hometown either. And this is where I think this is really on Andy Reid. I mean, I think they're going to have to be real creative with some of their passing concepts because, again, those two safeties, they can buzz down and take away the short stuff. I think Andy's going to have to screen these guys to death. I think it's going to be 5 yards here, 5 yards there, kind of get that pressure that they've been creating up front on their heels a little bit, keep those safeties creeping down, and then if you can't pop one over. I just think Patrick Mahomes is going to have to be super wise in this game. I think that is the key to the game because he's going to feel some pressure, but he's just got to trust in some of the things that Andy Reid dials up, and Andy Reid is going to have to be on it and adjust through this game like we talked about it being a short week. There's going to be a lot of different things that he sees because with these safeties back, that defense, I'm telling you, Hooker and Donovan Wilson, they hit hard as hell and they can cover. Just an incredible tandem. And I think that's the impact that the Chiefs have to try to exploit in some sort of way, maybe use their aggression against them.
Yeah, for me, it's taking a page out of last week's playbook, which is control the game. Maybe not running the football almost 40 times, but they're going to have to play this game in the low 20s, I think, to win. They start playing this game in the 30s, Dallas is winning all day long. And so for me, it's controlling the football, it's playing clean. The stuff that they got away with some stuff in this past game that has beaten them in previous games, like the Jawan Taylor penalty on the touchdown by Travis Kelce. They end up starting to drive deep in their own territory after a special teams penalty. They've been doing this stuff all year long.
Yeah, I don't think they started to drive beyond the 29-yard line.
Yeah, and so you're talking about these long fields. It can't happen. And I think that's going to be, to me, the two biggest things. Just because
they got to be better in the red zone. They can't pull that crap against. The Colts.
They can't kick field goals. Can't kick field goals. Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. Can't kick field goals against these guys because they're going to make plays. I mean, I definitely think they're going to make plays because they're going to be at home. They're going to feel good about themselves. They're going to have all the hype and everything, pomp and circumstance. So they got to be able to match that. And I think it's really hard to do what the Chiefs are having to do every week, was emotionally be so invested in these games and come out and pull them out and go back and do it all again the next time, a week later. And so, but with that said, it's prediction time. And so, Steve, we'll start with you this time since you're the guest. Like, what do you like? What do you like?
I'm going Kansas City. Are we putting points up on here?
Yep.
Yeah.
The score.
I'm going Kansas City. I'm going Kansas City 24-23. They're getting another one possession win.
Wow. Okay. 2-5 and one score games now. What do you guys?
All right. That's right.
Well, I wish that wasn't the one time you let Steve go first, because I should flip around my screen and show that I have 24-23.
No way. Okay. All right. Let's go 28. Let's go 28-27.
Well, you just think I'm going to be wrong?
Yeah. You got to think like I'm thinking then. Low scoring game.
I do think because the 24 was an odd number to come up with, because you're saying they go 3 out of 4 in the red zone a week after going 1 for 6. But this red zone thing, they were 3rd in the NFL in red zone 2 weeks ago, and then terrible against the Broncos and terrible last week against the Colts. So I think that usually red zone success, like, you just look at, is the offense any good? Like, can you get to the red zone? The Chiefs get to the red zone more frequently than any team in the league. And so I do think that this is going to balance itself out. But I also agree, these are all small sample sizes when you just look at one game. It has to balance itself out this game, or they won't win. You can't have another game where you go 1 out of 6, because this offense is too good.
Yeah, I got the Chiefs winning this one. I feel like this is it's going to be an ugly game, but I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than people think. I got them 21-20 in this one. They find a way to slow down that offense. They find a way to avoid the penalties I talked about, and they find a way to get 3 touchdowns in the red zone. And I think Patrick Mahomes being home, I think Nick Bolton being home, hopefully Rashee Rice takes some Ubers. Don't get any cars driving around anywhere. That's right. Uber Black, my man. Stay with that. Give you a nice car.
It'll be interesting too, because one thing, I don't know the numbers on it, but like these Thursday night games and these short week games, you see some giveaways, and then there could be some turnovers in play. In this game as well.
Yeah, I agree. But it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be must see TV and a fun watch. And so we got to wrap this thing up here pretty soon. But I want to thank you, Steve, for being here.
Absolutely.
It's been a blast. You're always welcome back, whether Soren's here or not. You showed up big for us. One quick note for everybody's watching and listening: we will not be doing our typical Friday podcast. We're taking the rest of the week off. Since Soren's not here, we'll be back next Tuesday. And if you're wondering where Soren went, I don't know where he went, but I do know he sent us a text this morning saying he had the runs. So Soren, wherever he's at, is being Soren. so trust in that. Trust in that. He's doing him. But thanks everybody for being here tonight. Got a lot accomplished, a lot talked about, and it's going to be a fun Thanksgiving. And have a happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching at home, and you guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks, Steve, for doing this.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
And thanks for everybody watching us. And that's the latest edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. We're all done here.